Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 62 of the Law Ninja Joke MMA Picks podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing UFC Macau, headlined by Yadong and Deiveson Figueiredo. So, yeah, this is the card. Top to bottom, there are a few familiar names, but largely a lot of newcomers or relatively unknowns. We're going to be focusing on the fights in red, and outside of those fights, guys, anything that you wanted to highlight to the listeners that you're looking forward to or you think is going to be exciting?
Right. Well, I'm gonna start off by saying that outside of the main card, there are a lot of shady, not like shady characters, but very weird fighters who shouldn't be in the UFC in the first place. So from the bottom there, Zhu Kanji, his record is relatively large in numerically, but his history of fights and his competition is shite. It's terrible. So whatever you see on his record, it's probably much worse, right? The only exception to that, when it comes to Chinese-ish names or Asian fighters, is Zhong Jingnan, who is fighting Angela Hill. Her record is fine up until okay. Let me rephrase that. Her record is bad up until her one championship run, and as we know, one championship is one of the more prominent organizations. And before that, she fought in Kunlun fights, and that organization is pretty terrible when it comes to matchmaking. Lots of can crushing going on there. So her record is rough, but she is a great fighter. Ding Meng, his record is 35-9, which to me looked great before I looked into it more. He has won against 15 fighters who have either a negative winning ratio, like they have more losses than wins, or they're rookies, 0-0, 0-1, whatever, very low experience fighters. So his record should really be 20-9. Sumudaerji, we'll talk about him soon, but his record also is scrutinized a bit here because he has a bit of a weird background in fighting in the WLF organization, which is a recurring theme this whole week. The WLF organization is terrible. I keep saying this every single Chinese card, and eventually I'm going to get shot. So either way, whoever you see that's Chinese up there, I know that sounds terrible already to hear, but take their record with a grain of salt. That's pretty much my kind of rant, but anything Alex Perez, Sumudaerji upwards, so the Jake Matthews, Asakura, Pavlovich, all of those fights are great, but it's just the shit that's down below that it's gross. So yeah, Will, what do you think?
My theory on this is that in the way that I have a weird obsession with women's MMA, I think Josh has a weird obsession with Road to UFC. So, yeah, basically, in my view, Road to UFC is less reliable from a tape perspective than Dana White's Contender Series is, and that's also quite sketchy. So I think you the way you've just rifled through all of these dodgy promotions and just sources I would know nothing about kind of highlights my stance on that one, I think. So basically for me, this is a lower than Dana White's Contender Series level card, which is why I just haven't engaged with anything that's got debutantes in it. So if it's not a name that you recognize from the UFC roster, I haven't looked into it at all, which means I've not really been paying this card any attention. For the fights that I do know, some of them are relatively interesting, I guess. Perez versus Sumudaerji is going to be interesting. We're obviously going to talk about that later. I am interested to see Angela Hill in 2026 because I think she's got an interesting angle of being old and on a decline. So let's see how that goes. And then the card's got two light heavyweight, I guess you could call them bangers, but they could just be awful fights on the main card, which, as you know, is not really my cup of tea. So to be honest, this card has just been designed for me it's just a test of whether or not I am actually a diehard UFC fan because there's no way I should watch this. But it's also on at like 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning, so can't hate having some early morning fights. So I will still watch it, but I don't care. I'm not fussed.
Is it early morning for you on the Sunday?
I can't even remember. It might be.
Saturday.
I haven't looked into it enough.
I can't. I'm just trying to figure out what time I'm going to have to wake up. Or
it's 4 a.m. Eastern on Saturday, so it's Saturday morning for me. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, so I won't even be able to watch this card. It'll be the middle of the night.
Let's just stop the recording there.
Oh wow. Okay, so that's good to know in advance. I might be able to set the alarm clock for this main event though, because I think this is a good main event. Here we got Song Yadong, who in the fighting the bantamweight division against Deiveson Figueiredo, former flyweight champion, who's been fighting at bantamweight for the last few fights. He's been losing, regularly, but against the very high level of competition. So Deiveson Figueiredo, last time out, he lost to Umar Nurmagomedov, and last time out, Song Yadong lost to Sean O'Malley. So I think, on paper, you'd think this fight would be competitive in theory, but the odds simply indicate that Song Yadong should run through Deiveson Figueiredo. So what do you guys think? Is this going to be one-way traffic? Is Song going to finish Figueiredo? Is it going to go to decision? Can Figueiredo upset the apple cart with grappling and submission threats? Maybe go to Josh first.
Yeah, look, when it comes down to this fight, I have to question Figueiredo's body here. I know that sounds weird or probably homosexual in a way, but like he has been through so many battles and injuries from, I think it was like a knee injury just last year, I think, by Sanhagen. His weight cuts have been problematic because he missed weight against when he was going to fight Nurmagomedov. I feel like this is his last straw to see if he's really still within himself to fight. But the one thing I will give in terms of respect to full Figgy here is his power. Yadong, or I'm going to call him Song because if I say Yadong too many times, I'll laugh. Song tends to strike within a range in which his opponents can fight back. And that's just typical boxing for you, really, right? They stay in the pocket, they stay in the jab range, but they still stay within that fire and fury of their opponent. Song is not the most reliable fighter, and when I saw that his odds were maybe it's shifted now, but on Tapology minus 415, I was like, that can't be right. Against an ex-champion like Figgy, against a tested veteran like Figgy, who, even though he's 38, still hits like someone who, eats bricks for breakfast, I don't know how Song is going to cleanly win this fight unless he keeps it boring. He cannot get into any kind of exchange against Figgy here, or he's going to get blasted by an overhand right or whatever. And the overhand right or left, whichever stance Figgy is in, is going to land, given that Figgy is a shorter fighter. But then you have to look on the opposite end here, where Song has been well known for being a volume-heavy striker. He is more combination heavy compared to Figgy, who is more one punch heavy and singular power kind of fighter. My only problem with Song though is that whenever he performs or whenever he fights, he doesn't really fight to perfection. I know that perfection is a very hard thing to achieve in the UFC. We see fighters mess up all the time, but the way that he's been built by Team Alpha Male, by Uriah Faber's team and all that stuff, you'd expect some sort of finesse. You'd expect some sort of rubbing off of that kind of experience in the team, right? Song hasn't done that. He has improved when it comes to wrestling and takedown defense and whatever. But whenever it comes to a straight up striking fight, he just forgoes the defense and goes at it. Like every single fight we see him in, whenever the fight's over and they're doing the winner or loser announcement, he is bruised and battered and smashed, no matter if he wins or loses, right? So I don't trust Song to pull this off unless it's a clean and safe performance. Because frankly, Figgy has that one punch power, as I keep saying, you know. Yeah, that's my bit of a tangent there, but like that's just how I see this fight going. It's a bit of a rough main event. Song does have the 5-round cardio compared to Figgy, who probably has, you know, still the power to manage 5 rounds, but not the cardio to keep up with the volume of Song. So pick wise, I got Song here, but the odds should not be that wide. Maybe they've closed a bit. I don't know, but yeah, that's my thoughts. Will?
Yeah, the odds have gotten worse. Song Yadong's like minus 600 now, which I think on paper, when you look at it, does seem a bit steep, just because this is, you know, 2 quote unquote elite level fighters, and you know, Figgy used to be a champion. But for me, my views on Figueiredo, I was very, very opinionated about his move to bantamweight when he made the switch in, what was it, like 2023, and I'm happy to say that well, at first it was a terrible take, but now it's evolved into a really good take, I think. I always had a weird kind of opinion of Figueiredo when he was at flyweight, because I didn't think he was like minute by minute technically elite. But then he just had like a dangerousness that flyweights didn't used to really have back in the day. Like there used to be a thing of like flyweight fights were considered just like sort of decision based things, because I think that, you know, the narrative used to be that the higher the weight class, the more likely there is for a finish, right? I mean, statistically, I imagine that's true, but I think Figueiredo was the exception to the rule, and that's why he was so popular. And then obviously he got to the point where I think his body just sort of gave out on him with the weight cut, and that last fight he had against Moreno was pretty feeble, so it was obvious he needed to move up. But you look at his like size, and he's not got the frame for bantamweight. And going back to him being dangerous, it was explosiveness with his submissions, but mainly power with his hands. You move up 10 pounds and if you're undersized, it doesn't translate too well. You're hitting dudes who are bigger. It's not going to work so well. So when you consider how many knockdowns, finishes, and just sort of like brutal moments he had in the flyweight division, comparing that to the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fights he's now had at bantamweight, he's landed 1 knockdown, and it was on Marlon Vera. So, you know, Vera's incredibly tough. I don't see the dangerousness from him. I mean, he couldn't finish Cody Garbrandt with striking, you know, like that. That's a relatively important thing. So when I look at this fight, I just think that Figueiredo is, I ask myself, where do I think Figueiredo is better? And the only answer I could give is in pure power. But then I say that, I think that is referring to like the notion of Figgy from years ago, because I don't think he's actually really demonstrated any super dangerous lethalness on the feet, which is, you know, kind of just takes away his biggest weapon and his only weapon here. And then I guess also one thing I do want to point out, for anyone who doesn't tape fights and hasn't watched them back or doesn't have the memory for it, like, don't listen to anybody that tries to tell you that Figueiredo beat Montel Jackson, because Montel Jackson beat Montel Jackson in that fight. If you rewatch it, you don't see anything from Figueiredo that says, oh, I see why he won that fight. It's simply a case of like Montel Jackson just didn't do anything, and so Figgy was just happens to be there. You know, like I think I would have probably had a decent chance of beating Montel Jackson that night, because Jackson just didn't do anything. So yeah, he's lost 3 of his last 4, and the Montel Jackson fight basically complements that, but it doesn't mean anything about Figgy. He looked awful in that fight. He had the door wide open to steal a win against Montel Jackson, and he barely did enough. Like it would be a short list of fighters in the UFC that I think wouldn't have beaten Montel Jackson on that night, given the performance that Jackson put in. maybe he was scared of the power. I guess it's that. But either way, I digress. I think if Figgy's going to win, he's got to finish Song Yadong because he's definitely the inferior minute winner. But I just don't believe his power is there anymore in the same way because he's fighting dudes who are taller. And I mean, Song Yadong is also very durable himself, isn't he? I doubt he's ever been finished. Oh, he did get like cut stoppaged against Corey Sandhagen, I think. Yes, he did. But doctor stoppage on the stool that was due to a cut. So yeah, it's the perfect storm for Figgy, I think, and minus 600 makes sense to me on Song Yadong. So I actually did take Song Yadong's money line when it was minus 450 because yes, it seemed a bit steep money wise, but as soon as I really thought about it, I was like, hang on, like mathematically, I don't know how you can give Figgy that much of a chance. So yeah, it's a chalky play, but it's a chalky card. So that's what I went with. Dom, how about you?
Yeah, I don't have any deep technical analysis here to add on to what you guys have said. I pretty much agree largely with Will and some of the things that Josh said. But I was in the audience when both these gentlemen fought on the same card, actually. So they both fought at UFC 324, which was the Gaethje Pimlet card at the start of the year. So I was in Las Vegas for work and I stayed for the weekend. That you do, got a ticket to the event, and I was in the arena to watch both those fights, which both disappointed me. One because I bet on Song Yadong to beat Sean O'Malley, and I was just trying to remember that fight, and he did okay. So he won the second round on all the judges' scorecards, and I was like, how did he do that? Because did he do it through striking? No, he took him down. That's right. He did a bit of lay and pray on old Sean. Sean outstruck Song Yadong on the feet, so it was a correct decision, 29-28 for Sean O'Malley. And the main thing to take away from that is Song Yadong is a high-level striker, and it was competitive for the most part with Sean O'Malley, and he was dominant in the round that he could get Sean O'Malley to the mat. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that in one of the other two rounds, or he would have won that fight. Now, I think he's going to take an opposite game plan here against Figueiredo. I think he should know that he's faster, more powerful striker than Figueiredo, and in that same event, Figueiredo fought Umar Nurmagomedov, and in the arena, I just remember thinking, what is he doing in there? Because he's surviving, but he is not fighting to win. So if Umar Nurmagomedov was advancing, he just wouldn't throw. And if Umar threw, he would back off, and then he saved all his energy for one burst. I think it was at the end of the first round, and that was it. Literally all he did the whole fight. He obviously was taken down and controlled a lot of the fight, but he just looked like he didn't want to be in there. So I think this is slightly strange matchmaking, only in the sense that it's 5 rounds. So like if it was 3 rounds, yeah, I think that Figueiredo would have looking at it and go, I can survive 3 rounds with Song Yadong. But I mean, going 5 rounds with Song Yadong is not easy. I mean, just ask Ricky Simone, right? Simone had some grappling success on Song Yadong early, I believe. But basically just got worn down for the calf kicks, body kicks, the punches. So yeah, I just think that if this was a 3-round fight, I would say yes, perhaps these odds, should be, closer. But given it's a 5-round fight, I think Figueiredo is going to struggle if he comes with the game plan that he did against Umar Nurmagomedov, which is just basically picking up a paycheck and trying to stay safe and not take too much damage. That's going to be difficult over 5 rounds against the home fighter, with the crowd baying for blood in China. Actually, I don't really do that, do they? Pretty quiet there. So maybe he's got that. But I think all the cards are stacked against Figueiredo here. The only way I see that he can win this fight or even survive the 5 rounds is through grappling. And he has to get Song Yadong down early, and really, really drain his gas tank and also wear on him on the fence. I've seen the face-offs. He's a smaller man than Song Yadong, so I think he's going to struggle, throughout this fight. And obviously, there's also lucky punch aspect as well. But I think Song Yadong is as close to a shoo-in for this result as you can get. I mean, it's clear the UFC are setting him up. They want to build him back up. Probably say thank you to him for taking on Sean O'Malley, because not many people in the top 10 probably wanted to take that fight. So, I think this is a figgy spot personally, and I also took the money line as well. I used Polymarket, so I could get minus 300, and it's not hovering too far away from that now, I don't believe, but it was that 75% implied probability. So I thought that was pretty generous. Should we move on, or do you guys want to respond to anything I've said?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything. I mean, this feels like a Wikipedia page right now, the amount we talked.
Yeah, let's move on.
So we're moving quite far down the card here. I'm just going to check where this is in the order of play. I think this is like 5th or 6th fight. I have to check, unless you guys know.
I think it's the start of the main card, I believe.
Okay, is this the opener, is it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Take a look. Yeah, I think it's the opener. So this is an interesting fight. You've got Alex Perez, who's been in the UFC a long time, 15 fights in the UFC, dating back to 2018, against Sumudaerji, who has had less fights. He's had like 9 fights in the UFC. 10 fights. So they're both decently experienced, but Alex Perez is definitely the more experienced. He's also the slightly older gentleman. He's 34 years old. Sumudaerji is 30 years old. Alex Perez is coming off a great win. He beat Charles Johnson, the same Charles Johnson who beat Sumudaerji, albeit that was a while back. So Alex Perez fought Charles Johnson, in that same card, the Gaethje Pinman card that I was just talking about. And Sumudaerji fought Charles Johnson in 2024, and he lost a unanimous decision. And that was a pretty close fight, though. And I think the thing when I was looking at these fighters, it's always good to see if they have a common opponent and how they performed against them. So, Alex Perez knocked out Charles Johnson in round 1. So he didn't really learn a lot because it was pretty quick. He caught Charles Johnson, and then he just followed up basically, and the ref stopped the fight just because Alex Perez was swarming him. And Sumudaerji had a close decision fight. He dropped 2 rounds, the first 2 rounds against Charles Johnson, and then won the 3rd round, actually, interestingly. And this fight is in China, of course, or in Macau. So I think Sumudaerji hasn't have to travel as much, although I think both these gentlemen train in California. I think Sumudaerji could have obviously easily gone to China. I assume he went to China a lot earlier to acclimatize, and I don't know when Perez got in. So stylistically, I think that Sumudaerji is going to be the superior striker, and I think that because of his length and his movement. I don't think he's like a massively superior striker to Alex Perez, just in the sense that Alex Perez has power, he's got decent boxing, decent movement, decent calf kicks, but Sumudaerji has the reach. Basically, he's also got good kicks, and he's a sniper. He's pretty accurate, and I think he's starting to learn how to use his length well. Admittedly, he's not fighting the best fighters. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's beat Mitch Raposo, Kevin Borjas, Jesus Aguilar. But the one thing that he's done consistently in all those fights is be defensively sound, so not get hit too much. Because I think in the past he's been caught on the feet and then followed up and subbed. He was subbed by Matt Schnell, but that was an absolute war. He got tagged and subbed. Tim Elliott just mauled him on the ground. So I think if Alex Perez comes here with a grappling-heavy game plan and is able to get Sumudaerji down, he can make this fight look pretty straightforward. For me, the problem is with that hypothesis is that we just haven't seen Alex Perez do that recently. You have to look quite far back in his fight history before he really proactively was grappling to win a fight. Now, that's just one of the things you can't really account for, is it hasn't really fought anyone he could grapple, because you look at his litany of recent matches and he's fought grappling beasts that he wanted to keep on standing, like Tyra, Makayev, Pantoja, Figueiredo. You don't want to be taking those fighters down. So I think that's the counterpoint to what I said, is that he hasn't really had an opportunity to have a grapple heavy game plan. But you do have to go even further back. You have to go back to 2019 to see him employing multiple takedowns to win a decision. That was over against Mark De La Rosa back in 2019. And before that, he grappled Eric Shelton in 2018. And he has got subs on his record. So yeah, I think, and we know that Sumudaerji has had issues with grapplers. So I certainly can see why Alex Perez has had money coming in on him. I think Alex Perez opened up as an underdog, and now he's a favorite. So the line's flipped, and Alex Perez is sitting around minus 140. So yeah, I can see that logic. But for me, from a money line perspective, I can't quite. I think that's probably, for me, that's okay where it is. Like Sumudaerji plus 120, Alex Perez minus 140. I think it's the overseas aspect, it's the youth and the height and the reach. I think Sumudaerji is live here for a win. If we take a look at the bets, I just put some of these out. I just floated some of these out here. Will's taken the Perez money line. I floated out the over 2.5 rounds. I just thought that seemed to be interestingly quite close to even money, and goes to decision is basically even money. I think there's a lot of potential for this fight to go to decision because I think it's competitive. Basically, I think if it's standing, I don't think Alex Perez will want to overcommit to his strikes. He'll have to close the distance and get close. But if he does that, he's at risk of getting caught. I think potentially the decision no action on Sumudaerji is interestingly lined because it's wider than his money line. So I only put this here because the money line is like plus 120. Yet if you take away the decision option, he becomes plus 150. And I think that's largely predicated on the fact that Alex Perez basically never goes to decision. But he never goes to decision, but it can go one of two ways. He can either like lose or he can win. So in terms of decision losses, he's only got one decision loss, but he's got 2 decision wins. So I feel like he's slightly more likely to win on decision through grappling. And I think taking that away, that's why I thought that was an interesting prop. But definitely interested to hear what you guys think, and maybe go to Will first since you've got the Perez money line. What am I missing here? And why do you think Perez is the side?
I don't think you're necessarily missing much. I think maybe we just have a different expectation on Perez's ability to mix in grappling and obviously his wrestling. For me, it was more sort of like a mathematical play in that I would therefore say that this fight is like striker versus grappling based, well-rounded fighter, if that makes sense. That's a very contrived way of saying it. But if they strike for 15 minutes, I give a slight advantage to Sumudaerji, but slight is the key word. Like I'm talking 55 to 45%, so just a little bit. If they grapple, I give a massive advantage to Alex Perez, basically. And then when you consider the fact that Sumudaerji is not the most lethal fighter, the summary of his fight against Jesus Aguilar in his last fight was all just Sumudaerji not being particularly interested in putting his stamp on it. I mean, he really should have finished Jesus Aguilar in that one. So I think that means that Sumudaerji is going to probably give time to Alex Perez to switch it up if he needs to. And if Sumudaerji is going to show him within the first, 5 minutes that he's the superior striker, I think Sumudaerji winning the fight minute by minute on the feet increases the chance also that Perez might switch it up midway through and get his grappling going. So, yeah, like just from a mathematical perspective, if I think that Perez is competitive in the striking, that means I give him a decent proportion to win a striking-based fight. And then if I think that Perez is absolutely dominant if he grapples, that gives him massive proportion of his winning equity via grappling. So basically, when I did the maths on it, I just think that I give Perez at least 60%. I think he wins at least 6 out of 10 times purely because he's good in the area that Sumudaerji is best in, whereas Sumudaerji is terrible in the area that Alex Perez is best in, if that makes sense. So I'm not super convinced. I really wouldn't want to have my life on the line of a Perez win because Perez is also someone who shits the bed a lot. That's another point to make as well. If you look through Alex Perez's record, the narrative is unfortunately him snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. I know I've said that phrase incorrectly, but I've said it for that reason. Perez has been very good in a lot of his losses. He has, like in terms of the total minutes of a lot of his fights, he's actually beaten the guy that's just produced a submission out of nowhere and beaten him. Sumudaerji's not much of a submission guy. I think he's got a few of them that he'll threaten every now and again, but I think the level in grappling is pretty clear here. So I'd be very surprised if Perez falls victim to a submission out of nowhere. When you consider the guys that have done that to him, it's like you've got Almabayev, very good grappler. Deiveson Figueiredo, we just talked about. He was very explosive at flyweight, and that was kind of him in his prime. I guess you could say Tatsuro Taira. I mean, obviously I think that was like a TKO via injury, but Tyra was losing on the feet in that first round against Perez, but managed to sort of find an opportunistic moment to grapple, and then that's what caused the finish. So honestly, Perez is in terms of Perez's like overall UFC history, he's his own worst enemy. But I just don't think Sumudaerji has the skill set to really capitalize that. You know, it's like it's just one of those instances where it's a random tangent, but Jared Gordon versus Jim Miller a couple of weeks ago is one of those ones where you know that Jared Gordon is going to grapple, but you know Jim Miller's got an insanely good guillotine. So it's like the door was wide open for the inferior fighter to catch that like flash win. Whereas here, I just don't think Sumudaerji has demonstrated enough of an ability to be an opportunistic submission threat. So I feel like this is like kind of generous matchmaking for Perez in a way. It's still a competitive fight, but it's like it's a little a more gentle one. You know, he's not facing a guy who's going to absolutely ask the right questions, basically. So yeah, more of a mathematical sort of play. I just came to the conclusion that Perez, there was a little bit more sort of like meat on the bone, if that makes sense. But again, I wouldn't tell you that Perez is lock of the year. It doesn't surprise me that the line is like -130, -150. I think it should be about -150 to -175, to be honest. So there's a little bit of value, but yeah, that's my view on it. Josh, how about you? Where do you sit on this one, seeing as we're 1 for 1 in predictions?
Now, I'm going to be harsh here, and I do apologize. I love you too. You guys are great. But none of you guys have really mentioned Sumudaerji's main thing here in this particular matchup. Now, you guys did highlight the whole Perez grappling angle, and that's what I agree on wholeheartedly. But like, Sumudaerji is a heavy leg kicker, and if we look at Perez's like last fight against CJ, all we saw was aggression, strikes, forward movement. Because Perez is a shorter reached fighter or shorter length fighter, however you want to say it, he's a T-Rex. I think that he needs to use his legs to propel himself forward to close that gap. Now, if Sumudaerji watched his tape on Perez and saw Perez fight CJ, he would have noticed one main thing, and that's that Perez, when he is on the gas pedal, which he was for most of that fight against CJ, he doesn't really care too much about the defense because he's going all offense, going for the kill. Now, Perez has a very wide kind of like stance when he strikes. He has a very exposed lead leg. So if Sumudaerji is intelligent, I'm not saying he isn't now, but if he is like this weekend, I expect leg kicks. 7 to 10 in the first round easily, using his mobility to circle around the cage, jab, whatever, keep his distance, and use that 7.5-inch reach of his to just make it frustrating for Perez. Because, as you guys said, Perez needs to close the gap. He needs to get his wrestling going. He is a collegiate wrestler. He has a wrestling background. He has all of these weapons on the ground that he can use. But if he cannot use those legs of his to kind of like close that gap and you know, get into that range in which he can wrestle or grapple or whatever, then I just think that Sumudaerji is going to have freedom kicking the shit out of Perez's legs here. Like, I don't know if he's going to do that, but it was one of my main reads during my write-up this week, during my whole tape watch, because I always thought that whenever it comes to fighters in their camp watching tapes, they would always watch their opponent's last fight, mainly because I believe the rule for tape watch is that the last fight is the best fight, or like the most recent fight is their most updated skill set kind of fight, whatever that means, you know. But yeah, the leg kicks from Sumudaerji are what I'm going to get into people's minds this week. I'm going to be annoying about it, and I apologize, but like I feel like if Perez is going to come into this fight with a similar game plan to CJ, in which he just goes forward with aggression, those leg kicks are going to stop him in his tracks. And yeah, I did pick Perez to win by decision, only because being on the back foot is visually bad. But if Sumudaerji does land those leg kicks early and often, it's gonna turn the tides real quick, or turn the tables, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's my read there.
Yeah, no, thanks for adding something additional to the dynamic, and I think that means the first round is going to be critically important in this fight, isn't it? To see how they stand off against each other in the stand up, and whether Alex Perez will mix in takedowns early, or is he waiting to see Sumudaerji's game plan. The next fight we're going to be breaking down is going to be done by Josh.
All right. Look, I only picked this one because I was surprised to see Gurule fight as soon as he is gonna fight. First of all, Tsuruya is a high level, high volume wrestler. And I know that the narrative here in this fight is that Gurule's got great counter wrestling and all that stuff. And that's true. He is a fairly good wrestler in his own right, but he recently is coming off a 3-round barn burner against Daniel Barres just like 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago. And he is traveling a shitload of hours to get to China. Like I was talking to Dom about it on Discord, and I think I said something like 40 hours of travel time total for Gurule to get to China. I don't know if he is in China right now. He should be. I mean, it's freaking Thursday, but like if he isn't, he's going to be jet lagged. He's going to be probably struggle with a weight cut. So I'm going to keep my eye on the weight cut there. But anyway, back to the fight itself. I am, as Will, pointed out earlier in this episode, a Road to UFC cuck. I basically love the Road to UFC, and because the Road to UFC is starting again tonight for me, I'm going to be watching that. But anyway, Tsuruya comes from that kind of like tournament, and now I know that I criticized Chinese fighters or Asian fighters a lot earlier, but the Road to UFC tournament itself, it legitimately has the best of the best in the region fighting. So there is no padded record, there's no WLF scandal or criticism. It's all the best of the best fighting. Now, Tsuruya has one primary approach and very secondary approach to fighting, and that's wrestle. He is going to go for 20 to 30 takedowns this fight. Total guarantee he is going to sniff the crotch of Gurule and either like or hate it. It's going to be his game plan. And I don't know if Gurule is going to be able to defend it, given his logistics, given that he's coming off a fight a week ago. Now he's cutting weight again after eating maybe 10 kilograms of meat or whatever. I don't know how Gurule is going to look on the scale. So I am fairly intrigued by the weigh-in. I feel like Gurule might miss weight by a couple of pounds. If he doesn't, then holy crap, that's amazing. But if he does, then I feel like the travel time and whatever is the main cause of that. But when it comes down to it, I just think that Tsuruya, given that he is the more prepared fighter, and Gurule is coming in as a late replacement, it's just going to be Tsuruya doing Muhammad Makayev and hugging him for 15 minutes with the occasional break, So it's a very unprofessional breakdown. It's a very slow breakdown, but I only picked this one because I was intrigued by the narrative of Gurule being a late replacement fighter, and I'm a Road to UFC lover, so yeah, that's me. Who wants to take it? Will, you want to take it?
Yeah, can do. Unfortunately for me, I missed Luis Gurule's fight against Daniel Barres on the last week's card. So I can't really add too much to this, but the only thing I will say is, like, obviously when you're looking at a fight like this, the most obvious thing is to acknowledge Tsuruya's very, I guess, one-dimensional style is the most important part here, because Luis Gurule's chances of winning very much depend on his ability to stuff takedowns, because I mean, he's going up against a guy who's, like you say, gonna crotch sniff and gonna probably hit like around the 20 figure for takedowns if it goes long. So if you can't handle that, you're fucked. Well, you're probably fucked, because he's got the cardio to keep doing it for 15 minutes. So pretty obvious, like, that's the route to sort of analyzing the fight. I haven't watched tape on Gurule's takedown defense, but it immediately stands out to me that he was taken down 10 times in his Dana White's Contender Series win, which a lot of people will look at that number and go, oh, holy shit, taken down 10 times. But it means that he stood up 9 times, probably. Maybe not quite. But then, if I break it down here, his opponent had 5 minutes and 33 seconds of control time. So that's like, it's not a whole lot of control time per takedown, basically, is it? Which, says quite a lot to Gurule's get-up ability. So, I mean, obviously that's as far as I can really go with my analysis of it, because I haven't taped it. But in a sport like, in a game like sports betting on MMA, when you've got like 12, 13, 14 fights on a card, it's very easy to put your money in the right kind of spots. And this is as simple as this guy as a grappler. Is the guy he's facing good at defending, wrestling, grappling? Looks like yes. So it's probably not like the obvious open goal you would expect. So given that I think Tsuruya is sitting at like minus 250, minus 230-ish, I probably would be looking at the Gurule side personally. But that's a lot of opinions for a man who hasn't done tape, so I probably shouldn't be saying quite so much. But it just wouldn't surprise me to see Tsuruya get shut down and his wrestling land takedowns, but not actually do a whole lot with them. And Tsuruya's striking, to me, is not pretty. So I think that he might get sort of penalized for that sort of like, he's not doing any damage kind of narrative. And I think Gurule can try his best to make it count. And I think he did that in that Contender Series fight. He landed 105 significant strikes, which is pretty impressive considering he also got taken down 10 times. So if Gurule can make his moments count on the feet, or, do damage, I'd need to, again, watch tape. But I think that, I think that the evidence looks to be there that this isn't going to be super simple for Tsuruya, basically. But I am interested to look into this one a little bit more. Josh, how about you? Sorry, not Josh. Dom, have you looked into this one? What do you think about Gurule's chances on short notice?
Yeah, so like you, I do have an admission that I'm not overly familiar with Tsuruya. I know that his sole loss, I believe he's 10-1. His sole loss is to Joshua Van in a fight which, he did not look good in, because he couldn't get the takedowns. And as you mentioned, when you can't get the takedowns, he hasn't got a lot to offer on the feet. So the only positive you can take from that fight is that he survived. But with Gurule, he had the 3-fight losing skid against half-decent fighters in the UFC. Were they half-decent, actually? Ode Osborne, and who else did he lose to? He lost to Jesus Aguilar and Alden Correa. So, yeah, decent fighters. Correa's decent. Aguilar, I probably was expected to. I think he was a favourite, minus 200 favourite in that. So that was a bit of an upset, losing to Aguilar. And yes, I did watch the Perez fight because I bet on Gurule. So I have taped Gurule. So the admission is I haven't done much tape on Tsuruya, but I have a pretty decent read on Gurule. And I think the reason I liked him against Perez is I just thought he had the ability to sort of control where the fight went. And in the end, it didn't really play out like that. I thought the Gurule would mix in grappling, which he did. But in the first round, he actually got taken down by Daniel Perez, which again speaks to the point you made about him getting taken down on the Dana White's Contender Series. But he fought a pure wrestler in that fight. And he did win the fight. It was close. So the tide turned in the second round. Nick Piccinini, sort of gassed out. He was like a sort of a thick-set wrestler type, and he kind of just couldn't get the takedowns anymore. I think once you've used a certain amount of your explosive energy, he just couldn't do it anymore. So I think, yeah, that does speak to Luis Gurule's get-up game. I just don't know if Tsuruya has the stickiness to make it all the way to the end of the fight. I think that's the key thing. If he gets Gurule down, is he going to attack subs, or is he going to try and control him? So I think that's really the question mark that you were getting at, Will. So I'm leaning towards Tsuruya here. I think that the main reason being the short notice, right? With Gurule having fought so recently, May the 16th he fought, and if he got a round 1 KO, I'd be like, you know what, this guy can do it. He can rock up in Macau and put on a good performance. But he fought 3 rounds, and he did take some decent shots from Perez. I mean, Gurule's got a chin on him. But I think the problem with Gurule is he fights close with everyone, so he's not really putting a stamp on any of his fights. He beat Perez, but I wasn't like, I was super confident when they're reading the decision. It was a 29-28, and I was like, I think he's won. You know, I don't know what the live odds were, but I think they were probably like 60-70%. It wasn't like, you know, usually by that point the odds are, if someone's put a stamp on a fight, it's like 90%, right? But it wasn't up there, so I wasn't sure. But I felt like Gurule won the fight. And I don't think Daniel Perez is very good. I think Tsuruya, from my understanding, is pretty much a phenom on the mat. So yeah, I do think it's fairly binary in the sense that if it stays standing, Gurule should have a good chance to win. But I'm still not convinced, just purely because he's flown out on a Monday on his Instagram, which means it takes quite a while to get from I think he's in the middle of America to get to Macau. So he's probably landing late on a Tuesday. So then he'll probably try to acclimatize Wednesday through Friday. Let's see if he makes weight, because that's going to be the interesting thing. If he can make weight, it's only 135, so he's not having to cut to 125. That's worth noting as well. But that also does benefit Tsuruya, who, you know, would have been expecting to cut to 125. So Tsuruya may have, you know, more energy to grapple. So yeah, definitely leaning Tsuruya here just because of the short notice, and I just don't think Gurule's, you know, shown ability to separate. I wouldn't touch necessarily the Tsuruya money line, especially now that it has taken some steam. I think money's come in on Tsuruya, as I think Josh predicted when we were chatting earlier in the week. He said you thought he would attract some bettors, and you were right. So let's have a look at Tsuruya. I think he started about -200. What is he now? Yeah, he opened -200. He's not taken too much steam. He's gone down to -250, so it's like 1.5, and now he's 1.4. So not. I think because, you know, there's not much meat on the bone in terms of that bet. So that's the reason, I guess, that you've gone for the Tsuruya by points. I think that feels like a definite probability that it could go to points. I actually played the submission or decision prop. I just thought that, yeah, I think the cards are stacked against Gurule here. Now, if he keeps it standing, I mean, he's going to look like great value. So I think from moneyline perspective, I kind of agree with Will that's probably Gurule or pass on pure moneyline. Should we move on, or is there anything you guys wanted to mention on this fight further?
No, all good on my end.
Let's go to the people's main event, which is the female fight opening up the card, which Will's going to take us through.
Oh God! For a second I was like, I didn't even know which fight you were referring to, but it's this. Haha. Okay, I know. Again, another apology. We're doing women's MMA again, but in fairness to me, it's one of the most competitively lined fights on the card, and it's also a stylistic clash. So I think it's actually quite interesting. I think it's a shame that it's the fight that opens the card. I think that's a bit of an injustice to people who are very recognizable and interesting by women's MMA standards. They're not super forgettable. I mean, Loma Lookboonmee is, they always say it, one of the only Thai fighters in the UFC. She's like literally pure from Thailand. And Amorim is a very high level BJJ fighter. So I think that they're two interesting people and two interesting fighters, and it's an interesting fight. Therefore, obviously it's striker versus grappler. If Loma Lookboonmee can keep the fight on the feet for the majority, she wins. Very likely a decision. She's not got much power. And if Jaqueline Amorim can can have significant top control time. I think she probably finishes, but I think she also probably obviously will win minutes with her grappling there. It's interesting though in a way because Loma Lookboonmee has obviously when a fighter comes in and they're advertised as a pure Thai fighter, it's one of those kind of more old school things of like, oh, they're going to be terrible grapplers, similar to like how Alex Perez and Israel Adesanya were sort of looked at when they got to the UFC. Not to make the comparison, but you know what I mean. Everyone wanted to think like, you know, what's going to happen when Alex Pereira gets taken down, right? And we, in a way, we still kind of do think about that, don't we? Because he's quite clearly a lifelong striker. And Loma Lookboonmee's career is like a similar-ish kind of thing, but it's quite insane that she just didn't, like, no fighter that she ever really fought managed to do it to her for quite a long time. She ended up she got outstruck by Angela Hill in her second UFC fight, and like, you know, she sort of showed herself to be a decent striker, but nothing special at all. Then she fought Lupi Godinez 5 fights in. Lupi takes her down 5 times and has 7 minutes of control time. So literally, like, you know, half the fight was dictated, and I think she won every round. So the suspicion of, does the Thai kickboxer have any like ability outside of in a grappling realm, and the answer is probably not. Then she goes on a 4-fight winning streak where she gets taken down just 1 time and 1 time only. But then you look at the level of competition, it's pretty sus, and no one's really attempting takedowns on her at all, which is pretty crazy. I mean, Denise Gomes tried, but Gomes isn't really very good, is she? So yeah, and then most recently she faces Alexia Tainara, who is a fighter that I do think is very good, and definitely has potential as probably a top 5, top 10 fighter when she gets there. She took her down 5 times and completely dominated her from top position. Tainara is obviously a lot more physical than Jaqueline Amorim, but Amorim is also has a lot longer a frame. I mean, you can see it on the screen there. There's like 7 inches of reach in the favor of Amorim, and then 4 inches of leg reach. Only 2 inches of height overall, though, which is quite surprising. But there should just be sort of a bit of a physicality edge in terms of the on-mat grappling, and it makes me think that Jaqueline Amorim, should she get her takedowns, is going to have a lot of fun on top, and I think probably finishes Loma. Amorim is that good that she's got that sort of high-level BJJ that results in you're in hot water if you get taken down by her. It's not a sort of like, you know, if Lupi Godinez took you down or something, you'd probably be like, oh no, I'm in full guard. Whereas with Amorim, it's like, oh shit, I need to be careful here. She's submitted 3 UFC opponents now. She KO'd Montserrat Ruiz, but that was like a grappling based checkmate KO sort of thing. So that was also, you know, similar kind of point. But I suppose it's kind of worth noting that Amorim does have her flaws. She's not perfect, and she's not like going to be the next Mackenzie Dern. Her striking is pretty bang average. Her cardio is also a concern. I mean, she fought Sam Hughes in her UFC debut, which is it. Now we know, in a way, is actually the nightmare matchup for someone like Amorim, who is a gassy grappler, basically, because Sam Hughes is decent at fighting against wrestlers. She's got decent takedown defense. She's very kinetic. She moves around a lot. She's also got very good cardio, and she's a dog, which is the kryptonite for someone like that. And she lost that fight, obviously. Then went on and finished 4 fights in a row, very impressive. And then lost her last fight to Mizuki Inoue. People don't really know anything about Mizuki Inoue because she just barely ever fights. I mean, before that Amorim fight, her last bout was in 2023. But she's always been a decent, like an okay striker, but actually someone who is very knowledgeable and like smart in the grappling world. So again, another very difficult stylistic fight for Amorim, because Amorim, she got her takedowns early on as she needed to, but she kind of was like, let's go get another finish, and then burnt out because she went too quickly. So I'm hoping that Amorim is going to pace herself here against Loma Lookboonmee. If she gets the takedown, she doesn't need to like go balls to the wall and chase the finish, because if she lands a takedown in round 1 and wins round 1, if she lands a takedown in round 2, she's probably won the fight. So she can give us a conservative like, I'm not going to do anything crazy here. I just need my takedown. Because I don't think Lookboonmee's got particularly good get-ups. And I think Amorim's understanding of grappling is good enough that she can hold that top position. So Amorim probably, I think, finds a finish in rounds 1 or 2. So my prediction would be Amorim by submission. But I just hope she doesn't sell herself out in chasing it too much, because it wouldn't necessarily surprise me to get one of those awkward situations where Amorim's not got enough in the gas tank to pursue the takedown in rounds 2 or 3, and then she loses a 29-28 despite a very strong start. But yeah, there are levels here, and it's kind of similar-ish to what I said about the Alex Perez fight. It's basically the same conclusion, in that I think that the striker, the obviously better striker is Loma Lookboonmee, but she's not got much dangerousness. So I think she's going to allow Amorim the chance for the takedowns throughout the fight. And also Amorim, women's MMA, like you can win a minute or two as a bad striker, especially against Lookboonmee. She's not perfect. Whereas if they grapple, it's all one-way traffic in favor of Amorim. So I thought Amorim should therefore be around -150. I think she's also got all the finishing upside, so I think she should be respected for that. So given that the odds were a pick 'em when I was betting on it, I think I bet Amorim at +105. You can get her now at like -130, which is a lot less appealing. I still think personally there's a bit of value there. I think Amorim should be a moderate favorite in this one. So yeah, perhaps a hot take. No one really cares, but yeah, Jaqueline Amorim could be the better of the card in my opinion. How about somebody else? Does anyone else have anything passionate to say about this absolute barn burner of a fight?
Yeah, I'll step in if that's okay with Dom. I took the side of Lookboonmee here because I am a striking fan and I've followed her career for a long time now. But when you were talking about Amorim, I was like, okay, he's making sense. And so I looked into Amorim's background as you were talking, and I was listening and I was like saying, yep, my pick is fucked. And I was just agreeing with you over and over again. And I came to one conclusion mentally that really rings in my mind, and that's well, I'm retarded. That, and also I feel like Lookboonmee's striking is going to allow Amorim to get the takedowns, because Lookboonmee is a Muay Thai fighter. She uses the clinch really, really well. And what does Amorim do when she gets the takedowns? It's typically judo-based throws, right? Because she is a BJJ practitioner. I didn't think she gets many traditional double leg, single leg takedowns. And given that the reach advantage is always good when it comes to grapplers and wrestlers, so they can get their grip easier and all that stuff, I really think that I did a terrible job in picking Lookboonmee, but I had to pick a dog. And to me, Lookboonmee, it's the opposites, right? Like Lookboonmee is the striker, Amorim is the grappler. Anything could happen, and I do think that whilst Lookboonmee isn't a high-level finisher or like finishes at a high rate, she can still do the knees to the stomach damage that can sap the cardio of Amorim even more. But then again, how many minutes or seconds in the clinch is Loma going to be in before Amorim gets that hip toss or that Japanese named judo throw, or whatever they call it? So yeah, I picked Lookboonmee here. I'm still gonna pick her because obviously I can't change my pick now. But once Amorim and I guess props are opened up on Sportsbet, I might take a Amorim sub round 1 or 2 combo round kind of thing, because frankly, good job, Will. Normally people don't change my mind, but you kind of did. So well done. Yeah, that's my ramble. Dom?
Well, that's reassuring, because I also am on Amorim here, and I was having some doubts, which is strange because I placed quite a large bet on her. And just because, I think the doubts on the Amorim side. So first of all, I just want to say that the distinction that I make between Amorim and Alex Perez is that I know exactly what Amorim's going to do, whereas I don't feel like I know what Alex Perez is necessarily going to do in that fight. Look, if he comes out and shoots a takedown off the bat, I'll be happy for the guy. But I think he's going to stand and bang with Sumudaerji at least for a little bit. I don't think Jaqueline Amorim is going to stand for very long here, and it's fairly binary. It was very binary because both fighters, if the fight is standing, Amorim loses, and if the fight goes to the mat, then Loma generally loses. The difference here is probably the worrying factor is they both fought Sam Hughes, and so against Sam Hughes, interestingly, Loma could keep it standing, and Jaqueline Amorim couldn't get the takedowns. So the caveat on that is that was the debut fight for Jaqueline Amorim, and for Loma, she fought Sam Hughes, sort of the 1.0 version before she became a bit more beastly with the takedowns. So I think probably Sam Hughes against Loma tomorrow. I'd say that Sam Hughes might have pretty close money line with her and a decent chance of beating her through takedowns. But I did watch some tape on Loma's get-up game, and she got completely dominated on the mat by Thainara. But I don't think we can read too much into that because Thainara is just an athletic freak, and I just don't think Amorim has that. Well, you can look at her; she's skinny, right? Look on the right; she's not packing the same level of muscle density as Thainara, who is, who's an absolute unit. So I think we have to look more at the Lupe Godinez, right? And I think that was interesting because Lupe could get the takedowns very easily. She got 5 takedowns. She just didn't get the control time. I think that Jaqueline Amorim with the long limbs will get the takedowns and have more success with the control time. So once I sort of figured that out, I was thinking that I think Amorim has not only the submission ability, but if she's learned anything in her fights, she may take things a little bit slower. She knows she's got a dangerous customer. With the fights that Amorim's lost to Sam Hughes and Mizuki Inoue, she did look a little bit out of sorts later on in the fight. She started to run out of energy, and I think if she can keep those in her memory without, not in a negative way, but be like, look, I need to leave something in the tank because I can control these girls. I don't have to finish them, because obviously she's an ecstatic finisher. She's finished all the fights that she's won pretty quickly, except the Montserrat Ruiz fight, but she was dominating that fight. So yeah, I think it's ground domination or decision for Amorim, provided she gets the takedowns. That's the caveat. But I do think the problem, and the reason that I couldn't get to Loma is because I think in round 1, when they're dry, I think it's been very easy for Jaqueline Amorim to get the takedowns. Round 2, round 3, it's going to get, it could get hairy if we get to round 3, but I think we might be in a situation where it's Loma needs to finish. So at even money, it's a no-brainer, right? If someone says to you it's 50-50, pre-flop, I'd take Amorim. As the fight progresses, if it looks like Amorim's tiring, you probably get a decent price on Loma. Should be like plus 400 going into round 3, and you can hedge out if needed. So yeah, pre-flop. But now I know the fight is occurring in the middle of the night. Actually, you know what I'll do? Is this the first fight? I'm going to stay awake to watch this. That's when I'm going to set my alarm clock. Well, I need to set an alarm clock. I should just stay awake. It's 1 a.m. for me that the card starts. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch this one fight, and I'm going to go to bed. So yeah, that's my take on this. I'm with Will here on Amorim, and we're going to take a look at our bets. And I was very happy that Josh switched sides as well.
Pretty small card for me. Touched on the Song Yadong side of things. Cody Haddon is the second leg in a parlay there. Haddon is a very good-looking fighter, I think, in terms of his ability. I mean, he looks like he's got the skills to be one to watch. I wish he was fighting a bit more. I think he's been out with some injuries, which is a little bit concerning, I suppose. But aside from that, I think he's got absolutely got enough in the toolbox to beat Arichileng. And so, yeah, 3 units at -185. It's not the most appealing parlay. Some people probably look at that and think that's disgusting, but needs must on a tricky card, I guess. I've also got Alex Perez, for the reasons mentioned in the breakdown, for 1.5 units, and Jaqueline Amorim, as just talked about there. That's currently a 2-unit bet. I've mistyped that and not put the stake size in, but I probably will be looking to add that a little bit. I'm surprised the line hasn't flown off, so I might be able to see if I can add a little bit more around like the -110, -120 mark if possible. I might add in some Amorim by submission. I've just looked that up and it's about +250. Which I think is very surprising. I mean, well, maybe not surprising. I know this fight's going to be close, but like if Amorim is indeed the side, it's a big jump in odds, I think. There's a probability of like 50% to like 29%, which is quite shocking. I don't think I'd be surprised if Amorim takes 15 minutes worth of top control time and doesn't finish Loma Lookboonmee personally. So I think Amorim by submission is therefore a very nice play. So I'm probably going to play that one. But that's all I've got for this very small card as far as I'm concerned, just because I don't look at any of the Road to UFC stuff. Dom, how about you?
It's the same for me. A pretty small slate on my side too. Not dissimilar to yours. Amorim, moneyline, Yadong, moneyline. I took the main event doesn't go to decision. And that's because I thought I would capture some of the Figgy finishing upside. But on reflection before we came on, I just realized, I think even money for Song Yadong to finish the fight is also worth something. So I put half a unit on Song Yadong inside the distance at even money. And then we have some Tsuruya props here. So Tsuruya sub decision. I think that's pretty likely that he wins by one of those methods. I took Tsuruya points handicap. That means he needs to win every round or finish. And then I took Tsuruya decision no action because it was priced the same as his money line. And Gurule hasn't shown a lot of finishing threat at all in his fights. Even against Perez, who was very tired in the 3rd round, he fought close in the 3rd round, which was kind of disappointing. As I mentioned, I backed Gurule, happy I won. But Gurule is not my guy. Even though he won me money, it wasn't an ecstatic performance or anything, but he did well to win. I just think he's bitten off more than he can chew by taking on Tsuruya, with like 10 days notice across the world. I think it's too much for him. I actually have a couple of parlays here which dropped off, and I did take Haddon and I did take Matthews. I parlayed them both with Tsuruya, which I'm somewhat realizing that I have too much Tsuruya action, but it is what it is. I will play Amorim by sub. I'm just waiting for the best price on that. I don't know what the best price is right now. I don't know, Will, if you've looked, but I think Betfair usually has pretty good sub prices, prop prices, and I think Bet Online is not great, so I didn't want to take Bet Online just yet. Let's see what it is. Amorim by decision is currently 3.5 or +250. Yeah, I was hoping. Yeah, I guess it's okay. I was thinking maybe like +300.
Surprisingly, Amorim by decision apparently is +300 at Bet Online. That's the first and only time I've ever seen them be top price for a prop, because you are right, they take a lot of VIG, so their prices are awful for props. But for some reason, it's top billing there.
Do you think that the decision is more likely, or
I think the finish is more likely, but if you want +300, then go for it.
Yeah, I could take the +250 on the sub, but I haven't shopped around. I haven't looked at any other books, so I might look at some other books first before taking that. As I mentioned, I took Song Yadong inside the distance, but you might as well you could take his KO prop as well, I guess. Yeah, like I said, that's it for me. I haven't looked into too many other fights. I did look into the Ding fight. Ming Ding. Just saying words now. That guy, who I think is a debutant, fighting another debutant, which is Jose Enrique. Both guys are pretty low level. And I lean the Enrique guy because I think Josh mentioned it at the top of the show that Ding Meng has like a pretty fraudulent record, but also he just looks rubbish. All of his tape looks rubbish, but all of the tape on Enrique looks kind of like middling, but he's like really tall and really long for the division. And he's going to be, the far less battle-worn fighter, even though he's had a lot of wars, even though he's 23 years old. But the Ding Meng guy has had loads of wars. It's going to be a fun fight. So I do think the under is a good look, under 2.5. But I think the bookies have caught on. I don't think it's a great price, if I remember correctly, on the under 2.5. But yeah, that's a fight which is, yeah. I had a bing ding position, but I'm cashing it out. I just don't want anything to do with that fight. I could play the under if it's plus money, but I don't think it is. So let's go to Josh.
Yeah, same old for me, really. The parlay is a little bit of like a chicken chip parlay, I'd say. Having Arichi Lang round 3 starts. I was going to do a goes the distance kind of thing, but I realized that Haddon gets tagged a bit when he fights, and Arichi Lang still has that power. So round 3 starts is my, safest kind of like lean there. Matthews Harris round 3 starts. Yes, again, Matthews could finish the fight early via sub. That's my kind of like read on it because of his wrestling ability, and Harris is mostly just a puncher. He just hits hard, really. Now Pavlovich via KO with the round 1 being optional intrigued me the most because I don't think people are realizing how bad Taliesin is. We saw tape of Alex Pereira spar with Taliesin, and I'm sure maybe either Will or Dom, you guys saw as well. Pereira was ripping him apart. It was terrible. And to me, a punch in sparring is still a punch being absorbed. And if you pair Pavlovich's power to that kind of defense from Taliesin, it ain't good, dude. It's not going to be good for Taliesin. I expect a first round finish. The odds there are surprisingly good at the moment. So the combo rounds prop round 1 and 2 is 1.60, whereas the regular KO odds are 1.44. So I'm pretty much happy about that. I was expecting more terrible odds, but that's pretty good in my opinion. And then Song Figgy over 3.5 rounds is just a whatever kind of main event bet. So hopefully that parlay hits because I am broke as shit. Anyway, Hill via points as an alt bet is only there simply because she's a veteran facing off against Zhang, whatever her other name is. And her striking, Hill's opponent's striking, is Jessica Andrade like. I mean, if you can think of like just punches in bunches with the chin up in the air, that's her for like 3 rounds. So if Hill can negate that and win by points, then that's a alt bet 1. Arichi Lang via K round 1 or 2. That's basically me backing up my failed parlay if Haddon and Arichi Lang doesn't go to the 3rd round. And then Manifield via KO. So oh god, what's his name? Zhang. He recently lost to Walker, and I feel like given that Zhang's wins have only been against Anthony Smith and some other guy, I think it was Tokas or whatever. I can't remember. My memory's in shambles, but some other can. I can't trust the Zhang as far as I can throw him, and so I figured Manifield. The dude's nickname is Atomic. Fuck, anything can happen. So that's my final alt bet there. So that's my full slate, and hopefully money comes in.
Yeah, it's gonna. I'm not disappointed that I won't be able to watch this card, to be honest. And I'm looking at the next card, and I think it's better than this one. There are at least some more recognizable names on the card, and it's at the Apex in a week. So yeah, I look forward to chatting with you guys about that one, and we'll catch you all on the next episode. And by recognizable, I mean like barely recognizable.
I think it looks quite good.